G'day folks and welcome to another episode of Bushbeat here on rugbyleague.com, where we shine a light on country rugby league right across the great southern land. I'm Jason Costigan. Nice to have your company once again. Coming up on the program, our first out of Queensland, my home state, after we called the grand final in Mount Isa up in the northwest of the state last Sunday. We'll catch up with a couple of local rugby league figures from that part of the world, including the chairman of the Mount Isa Rugby League. And this fella, let me tell you, he's one hell of a straight shooter. Bob Jakeman is his name, and he's been involved with the game in the Isa now for half a century. Bob's been through good times and bad when it comes to rugby league in that great sporting mad city where rugby league was once a stronghold, but nowadays, of course, things are very different. Just the two teams in the Mount Isa competition, and Bob Jakeman has plenty to say about the situation in Mount Isa and more broadly country rugby league. After the break, we'll check out New South Wales and the ACT. That's next on Bushbeat here on rugbyleague.com. Welcome back to Bushbeat here on rugbyleague.com, and now our segment on New South Wales and the ACT, starting with the Denton Cup in Newcastle. And on the coalfields, they're still raving about that big local derby last weekend. Curry at home beating arch-rival Cessnock 16-14. In the other round 10 matches, Wyong edged out Western Suburbs 20 points to 18. Central beat Maitland 22-14. Northern Hawks brave against the entrants, but the Tigers prevailed 23-16. And South's 32-20 winners against Lakes United. In the Hunter Valley's Group 21, the Alan Cox Memorial Shield up for grabs at Denman this Saturday when the Greyhounds come to town. The shield is in memory of the former Devils and Singleton player. Kick-off is 5:30pm. Denman coming off a 26-10 win over visiting Muswellbrook, whilst the Greyhounds come into this one after getting the chocolates at Greeter, 20 points to 12 over the Colts. And speaking of Greeter, they have another home fixture on Sunday from 2 o'clock against Scone. The Thoroughbreds romping home 44-14 last weekend at Aberdeen. And also from 2 o'clock on Sunday, the Rams play the Tigers at Olympic Park. And the ladder right now, coming into round 9, Greeter Branxton and Singleton on 8 points, Scone, Muswellbrook and Denman on 6, Aberdeen on 2. Across the range in Group 4, a top-of-the-table clash last weekend at the home of the Magpies. Werris Creek 42-14 over the Moree Boars, and a costly defeat for the Boars. They've dropped back to 5th place now as a result of other fixtures, all of which were extremely one-sided, I've got to say. North 62-0 against Dungowan, Gunnedah 64-10 over Cootee, and Boggabri 80 points to 20 winners against Weewar. So we still have Werris Creek undefeated on 15 points, Gunnedah, Norths and Boggabri on 11, the Boars on 10, Cowboys 4, Roosters 2, and the Panthers on 0. This Saturday we've got Dungowan at Boggabri, Norths at Cootee, and on Sunday the Boars host Gunnedah and the Magpies at Weewar. 3pm kickoff for all those 4 matches. In Group 19 in the New England, 3 close games last weekend, including 2 draws. Guyra 28-18 over Glen Innes, a 30-all result between Urella and Moree Boomerangs, and 22 apiece between Tingha and Inverell, Narwin forfeiting to Warrielda. The latter, Inverell on 19, Tingha 15, Glen Innes 14, Guyra 11, Urella 10, Boomerangs 9, Warrielda and Narwin on 6. For this Saturday, Glen Innes at Tingha, Narwin at Urella, Boomerangs at Inverell, and Guyra at Warrielda. The kickoff across the board is 2pm. Down into the Northern Rivers. Last weekend, Northern United 16, Ballina 62, Murwillumbah 22, Tweed Coast 36, Coogin 18, Marist Brothers 44, Kyogle 31, Bilambil 16, Byron Bay 12, Casino 36, Evans Head 18, Tweed Heads 26, and Lower Clarence 14, Mullumbimby 10. To the table, the Northern Rivers competition, Coogin on 16, Bilambil 14, Marist Brothers and Evans Head 11, then Ballina 9, Kyogle 8, Casino, Murwillumbah and Mullum on 7, Tweed Heads and Tweed Coast both on 6, Lower Clarence on 4, Byron Bay 2, Northern United on 0. For this Saturday, Evans Head at Casino and Coogin at Kyogle. It's a 2pm and 5:30pm kickoff respectively. And on Sunday from 2:45, we've got Bilambil v Ballina, Marist Brothers v Byron Bay, Mullum v Northern United, Tweed Coast versus Lower Clarence, and Tweed Heads up against the visiting Murwillumbah Mustangs. In Group 2, Woolgoolga 34, South Grafton 18, Maxville 40, Coffs 10, and the Grafton Ghost 22, Sawtell 40. The latter, the Seahorses on top, 14 points, Sawtell and Nambucca 11, Maxville and South Grafton 8, Coffs 7, and the Grafton Ghosts on 5. For this Saturday, Maxville at Sawtell, and on Sunday, the Grafton Ghosts at Nambucca and the Seahorses at Coffs. a 2:40pm kickoff for all three matches. In Group 3, Foster Tuncurry 22, Wauchope 40, Taree City 20, Port City 30, Ulbar 14, Macleay Valley 14, and the Port Mac Sharks 36-0 winners over visiting Wingham. The latter, it's the Sharkies on top on 10, Macleay Valley 9, Ulbar 7, Wingham 6, Wauchope, Port City and Foster Tuncurry 2, and on 0, Taree City. For this Saturday, Foster Tuncurry welcome Old Bar as Port City host crosstown rivals the Sharks. Those games from 3 o'clock. And then on Sunday from 2:45, Wingham at Wauchope and Macleay Valley at home to Taree City. On the Central Coast, last weekend, the entrants beat Berkeley Vale 40 points to 22, Arimba 26-4 over Wyong, Toukley beat Woy Woy by the same score, and 16 all between Erina and Kincumber. The return of Matt Moylan, a big boost no doubt for the Colts. To the latter, Erina 15, Toukley 12, the entrants and Wyong 10, Kincumber 9, Arimba and Terrigal 6, Woy Woy and Berkeley Vale on 4. On Sunday from 1:20, we've got Wyong versus the entrants. Then at 3:05, Terrigal at Berkeley Vale, Arimba at Woy Woy, and in a top of the table clash, it's a ripper. It's Toukley at Erina. In the Macarthur, Collegians 34, Picton 16, the Oaks 23, East Campbelltown 25, Roos 16, Camden 42, Oakdale 46, Goannas 12, and Narellan 44-28 winners over visiting Thirlmere, a drought-breaking win for the Jets, so congratulations to Narellan. To the latter, undefeated Camden on 20 points, Oakdale 16, the Oaks and Collegians 14, Roos 12, Mittagong 10, Picton and East Campbelltown on 8, Thirlmere and the Goannas 6, and Narellan on 4. On Sunday, Roos v Narellan, Rams up against the Oaks, Mittagong versus Thirlmere, Goannas v Collegians, and East Campbelltown at home to Oakdale. They all start at 3 o'clock. In the Illawarra, last weekend, Dapto 26-18 over Thirroul, Corrimal upset West 26-14, and how embarrassing here, De La Salle forfeiting to Collegians. Big problems there for the New South Wales Rugby League and the Harrigan Cup. The latter, Collies on 12, West 10, Dapto 8, De La Salle 6, Thirroul 4 and Corrimal 2. And for this weekend on Saturday, we've got Collies hosting Dapto as West welcome De La Salle. And on Sunday, a rejuvenated Cougars at home to the Butchers. All those games start at 3 o'clock. In Group 7, Gerringong, 44-0 winners over Berry. Kiama, 22-16 over Jamberoo. Nowra defeated Milton Ulladulla, 16-14. And Rays beat Albion Park 30 points to 18. Stingrays and Shellharbour leading the way on 14 points. Kiama 12, Albion Park 10, Gerringong, Jamberoo and Milton Ulladulla on 8. Nowra and Berry on 6. This weekend's draw, as I click over on the screen, is unavailable. So sorry about that. That's Group 7. In Group 16, Moruya is the focus this weekend as the club celebrates its centenary. So congratulations to the Sharkies on 100 years. And apologies to Michael Wayman and co. I was hoping to get there before this weekend, but sadly that hasn't happened. We wish you well for your big centenary bash. Last weekend, Eden beat Cooma 28-22. The Bulldogs cooked the Chooks 50 points to 4. Narooma 28-20 over Bateman's Bay. And Bombala 58-6 over the Sharkies. To the table, the Dogs 16, Eden 14, Tathra 12, Narooma 9, Cooma 8, Bombala 7, Moruya 6, Bega 4 and the Bay on 2. On Saturday, Eden off to the Dog Pound. On Sunday, Bega host Bombala, Tathra at Narooma and Cooma at the Bay. It's a 3 o'clock start everywhere. In the Riverina, in Group 9, Gundagai beat the Junee Diesels in the Tucker Box Town last weekend, 20 points to 18. Roos defeated Albury 34-12. Tumut 22-18 over Young. South City flogged Brothers 52-4. Temora 42-4 over Coota. And the latter, Roos on top on 18, Gundagai 14, Temora and Tumut on 13. The Young Cherry Pickers and Albury Thunder on 8, South City and Junee 6, Coota 4, Brothers in the cellar on 0. On Saturday, it's Roos v Coota, Tumut at Albury and Gundagai at Temora. And on Sunday, the Pickers host Brothers as Junee welcome the Bulls. A 2:35 kickoff across the board. In the Central West, in the PMP, Orange Sims beat Lithgow Workies 38 points to 30. Hawks 46-6 over the Panthers. Mudgee 20-16 against St Pat's. Dubbo Sims 42-6 winners against Parks. Forbes beat Ningen in a terrific game, 30 points to 26 at Spooner. And Wellington 12-10 winners over Macquarie. To the latter, Forbes on top on 15. Dubbo Sims, Wellington and Mudgee and Orange Sims all on 14. St Pat's 10, Hawks 9, Macquarie 8, Ningen and Parks on 6, Panthers and Lithgow on 4. On Saturday at 2:30, it's Mudgee versus Forbes, and on Sunday at 2 o'clock, St Pat's v Nyngan, Parks v Panthers, Wellington hosting Orange Sims, Hawks versus Macquarie, and at 2:15, it's Dubbo Sims up against Lithgow Workies. In Group 20 last weekend, DPC 42-32 winners over Hay, Leeton 18-16 over Yenda, Waratahs 36-10 over Black and Whites, and Yanko 26-18 over the Sharkies. To the table, Waratahs on 18, Leeton 14, DPC 12, Yanko 11, Yenda 10, Black and Whites 8, Hay 7, Sharks and West Wyalong on 4. This Sunday from 2:30, Sharkies host DPC, Black and Whites at home to Leeton, Yenda v the Malleemen, and the Waratahs are at Yanko. In the Woodbridge Cup, Oberon 66-4 over Grenfell, Cowra beat Trundle 32-24, Manildra 36-12 over Cargo, Orange United won 23-18 at Molong, and Condo 30-14 winners at Canowindra. Manildra, Oberon and Cowra on 16 points, Orange United and Condo on 12, Molong 11, Canowindra, Eugowra and Trundle on 10, Peak Hill 9, Cargo and Grenfell on 2. To this Saturday, we've got Orange United versus Canowindra at 3 o'clock, Cowra v Molong at 6:10, and on Sunday from 2 p.m, Oberon at Cargo, Peak Hill at Eugowra, and Manildra at Condo. In the Castlereagh Cup, Coolah beat Gulgong 52-12, Coona 36-10 over Canamble, Dunedoo beat Warren 40 points to 30, and Barradine forfeited to Cobar. This Saturday at 2:30, the Magpies scheduled to host Warren, as Narromine welcome Cobar, Gulgongs at Canamble, and Coona welcome Coolah. And by the way, Coolah on top on 24 points, Coona 22, Narromine 19, Cobar and Gulgong 18, Canamble 16, Dunedoo 14, Warren 11, Barradine on 9. In the Pro 10 Cup, Barellan beat Gulgowie 38-10, Rankin Springs 24-16 over Hillston, and Narandra defeated Danny 46 points to 4. To the ladder, Ivanhoe on 8, Barellan and Rankin Springs 6, Bluebirds, Rabbits and Lizards 4, Danny on 0. On Saturday, we've got Hillston v Barellan, Ivanhoe versus Rankin Springs, and Narandra taking on Gulgowie. Hillston, by the way, is the host club this weekend. In the ACT and the Canberra Raiders Cup last weekend, Blues 48 defeated Roos 48 points to 20 rather. Woden Valley 24 defeated West Belconnen 22. Yass 27 beat Goulburn 26, and Tuggeranong 36-34 winners over Gungahlin. To the ladder, Blues on top on 14, Roos second on 12. West Belconnen 11, Woden Valley 10, Gungahlin and Belconnen United 6, Goulburn 5, Tuggeranong and Yass on 4. This Saturday, Gungahlin hosting the Warriors, the Sharkies at Woden, Roos v Goulburn and the Bushrangers off to Yass. It's a 3 o'clock kickoff across the board. And finally to the George Took Shield. Last weekend, Bynalong beat North Canberra 20 points to 18, the Snowy River Bears 20-10 over Googong, Bungendore creamed the Stars 78-6, and Crookwell beat Burrawa 22-20. To the ladder, Bungendore and Bynalong on 9, Hardin and Burrawa 8, Crookwell and the Snowy River Bears on 6, North Canberra 2, and on 0 we have the Goannas and the Stars. This Saturday, Crookwell off to Jindabyne. It'll be pretty cold there. Brass monkey weather, I reckon. North Canberra hosting the Tigers and the Stars at home to the Goannas. 2:30 kickoff for those games, and from 3 o'clock, it's the Hawks v Rovers at Maclean Oval. After the break, the first of my special guests out of Mount Isa in northwest Queensland, right here on Bushbeat on rugbyleague.com. Welcome back to Bushbeat here on rugbyleague.com, and I'll tell you what, we had a fantastic time last Sunday afternoon in Mount Isa. In fact, a great weekend in Mount Isa, calling the Mount Isa Grand Final last Sunday between Townies and Wanderers. And congratulations to the Devils on their 32-22 victory in the Premiership decider. I'm now joined by the Mount Isa Rugby League President or Chairman, Bob Jakeman. Bob, congratulations on last weekend. Terrific exhibition of bush footy, Mount Isa style.
Yeah, it was a good game last Sunday, and probably from my point of view, it was the wrong team that won, but yeah, it was a great game, and good luck to Wanderers Devils for winning the game.
Now, I've got to ask you straight off the bat here, there was a time this year when deep down you thought maybe we mightn't be playing rugby league. We may not have a season here in Mount Isa. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, well, when Brothers folded, it was pretty devastating, but the clubs stuck together and we said, we'll play 7 games throughout the year, one Nines game, and then we'll play the grand final a bit earlier and see how it goes. So hopefully next year clubs will get together and maybe join up to Mount Isa Rugby League next year.
I'll come to that in a moment. So this year, just the two teams playing in your competition, plenty of dress rehearsals for the one that counted the most. You've been the butt of jokes with a two-team competition. Why has it got so bad in Mount Isa, considering this place was once a rugby league stronghold?
Well, I think a lot of people have left town. Like a lot of people work at the mines, and it's probably, I think their wages are not real high, so a lot of people have left town and taken their families with them.
Now, Glencore's what the biggest employer in the city of Mount Isa, which is built on agriculture in the outlying communities with the cattle industry, but mining really is the cornerstone of the local economy. What do they do for rugby league?
Well, they do nothing for rugby league. Like, they don't sponsor sport in Mount Isa. Like I said, a lot of sports are folding up because they haven't got the funds to survive. But as far as Mount Isa Rugby League goes, Glencore do nothing for Mount Isa Rugby League.
So let's put this into perspective. You said sports, falling by the wayside. I'm led to believe a number of codes are no longer existing here in the city in Mount Isa. They've just fallen by the wayside. So rugby league's in pretty good company in terms of facing adversity. Yeah,
it's like there's no more rugby union, no more hockey, no more softball, and rugby league's struggling trying to get people to come to town. That's the biggest thing. We need people to come to town, but they won't come here because obviously the wages are not as high as other mines around the country.
Now, they tell me there's enough players around the place. The player pool's okay, but you're struggling for volunteers to run clubs to get things organised.
Yeah, well, Brothers folded because they had no one to run them. Black Stars folded 7 or 8 years ago because the people that were running it just had enough. They no helpers, so 1 or 2 people running clubs and they couldn't do it. What we need is these people to get together and start these clubs back up again, Brothers and Black Stars.
So historically, for those people not familiar, Mount Isa for many years, decades, you had a 4-team competition, not just A grade, the first grade competition, but reserve grade, under 19s, involving those 4 clubs, Black Stars, Brothers, Townies and Wanderers.
Yeah, there was 4 clubs there, and 4 clubs in Cloncurry that had reserve grade and A grade, and it's like all over Queensland, the game is dropped right off.
And Cloncurry, just an hour and a half, not even that, to the east of Mount Isa, now nothing.
Yeah, nothing in Cloncurry. We've asked them if they put a team in. They've said no, there's no interest in rugby league in Cloncurry.
And what's the QRL saying about this? Because they've got a vested interest here, because Mount Isa, with this rich history of rugby league, the likes of Scotty Prince and Nathan Feen and Jamie Goddard, they all came out of here playing State of Origin, going to the big time. There's just 3 big names.
Yeah, I don't know what QRL are doing. Like, we have a QRL lady here, but as far as putting funds into bush sport, I don't know what they're doing.
They tell me insurance is a problem.
Yeah, like the clubs used to put the insurance bill so players didn't have to pay. Now the players have got to pay the insurance $150 before they can sign up for any club.
We're speaking to Bob Jakeman, the chairman of the Mount Isa Rugby League, in the aftermath of last Sunday's grand final, won by Wanderers, 32-22 over Townies, as called live and free on rugbyleague.com. Bob, can I ask you about the event last Sunday? Was it a good exhibition for bush footy, and did it go to plan? Because a lot needs to be done in terms of stocking the canteen, marking the field, just getting ready for game day.
Yeah, no, it turned out a really good day. Like, it took a few volunteers, a little bit of work to get everything up and running, but no, it turned out a real good game and a real good day for Mount Isa.
And you think the best team won? I know you got your allegiances to Townies, but it was a game played in great spirit, I thought, in a place that's renowned for some rough and tumble rugby league. In fact, rough and tumble off the field. It was a very competitive match, and no place for the faint-hearted, but a good, clean game.
Yeah, them 2 teams always play a good, clean game, played in good spirit. But yeah, it was a great game of footy, and the best team won.
Well, now you're into off-season mode and planning for season 2026. What will you be trying to do? Will you be trying to re-engage with people at Brothers or in Cloncurry to try and build up the competition? Is it possible you actually could go from 2 to 4 teams next year?
I'm hoping so. We've got a bit of work to do in the off-season, but yeah, hopefully we can go to 4 teams at least next year.
We wish you well.
Yeah, thanks, Costo.
There he is, Bob Jakeman, the big kahuna for the Mount Isa Rugby League, speaking to us here on Bushbeat on rugbyleague.com. Stick around, more to come right after this. Welcome back to Bushbeat here on rugbyleague.com. Our show this week coming out of the rodeo capital of Mount Isa in northwestern Queensland. And my second guest on the program is the former premiership-winning Townies coach. He was with me in commentary at Alec Inch Oval last Sunday. Sean Wade. Sean, welcome to Bushbeat. I tell you what, I had a great time last weekend.
Yeah, g'day, Costo. Yeah, mate, it was. It's always a good weekend. The grand final. There's a lot of enthusiasm around grand final day from the kids and the seniors, and there's a lot of enthusiasm from those involved in rugby league because it means the end of the season.
Now, you've been here for quite some time, and you see this probably from a fairly interesting perspective with your career in the Queensland Police Service, but also with your involvement with other community endeavours, including the race club, local schools and whatnot, not just rugby league. What's wrong with Mount Isa Rugby League, down to just 2 teams?
Yeah, it's a direct result of the change in roster in the mines. People can't afford to get injured when they play rugby league. That the insurance benefit they get from being injured is pales into insignificance to the wage that they earn. So there's a lot to be considered for guys to pull on the boots every weekend and play rugby league.
Well, last weekend I heard a lot about insurance. The model's been changed. That's come out of Brisbane. What's the way to fix that?
Consultation. I don't believe that there was any consultation with Bush Rugby League before the insurance company and the QRL came to obviously an understanding or an agreement whereby, as president of Townies, that I would pay. I think it might have been around $2,200 for an A-grade men's team to play in the competition.
How does that compare to right now?
Well, I mean, $2,200 back then. And that's not long ago. It's 3 years ago that we paid that on behalf of the players. Now the process for a senior player to play rugby league in Queensland is when they go to register for a club, they must first pay $150 per player insurance, which is great. And it's an easy way to make sure people are paying their dues for insurance because it is a big cost to a club. But the problem is in Mount Isa, for instance, we've got a lot of minors at work that play in the rugby league competition. And I know when I was coaching Townies that I needed 40 A-grade men playing in that competition to be able to field a competitive side every week because of the 7-7 roster, 7 on, 7 off. So you put that, you break that down, 40 players at $150 each a year paying insurance. It's nearly 3 times more than what the club was paying for the group of players.
Sean, you know that Queensland very much economically depends on the resources sector, whether it's copper and lead and zinc in this part of the world, coal in the Bowen Basin and so forth. Are you surprised there hasn't been more pushback from places where the mining industry and those work arrangements are very different to yesteryear and it's impacting on sport, in particular rugby league?
Yeah, I think there might have been a little bit of conversation had after the horse had bolted, but I think, as I said, the horse had bolted. The players had to play. I know I went down to Longreach with a team for the Nines Carnival down there in February, and we had boys that only played that carnival for the year of football, and they each had to stump up $150 to register to a club to be able to play that carnival.
Now, Ben Eichen, the chief executive of the QRL, he's no stranger to Mount Isa. If he was here this week, what would you be telling him in terms of fixing the system?
Oh, I think it's got to go back to what we were paying previously. We hear in the news every day of the week, those that follow rugby league, that, rugby league, the NRL's never been stronger and never been in a better position. I reckon that's wrong as far as the bush goes, as far as Northwest goes. There's people hurting. Cost of living's hurting everybody across Queensland, across Australia. Rugby league is it's a sport that people love, universally in Australia, or especially in Queensland and New South Wales, and it stings for players and families to have to cough $150 to be able to first register to play for a team. It stings in hard economic times. It's just another cost, and sometimes Well, what do we do? What are we going to forego? Sometimes it might be rugby league. We're trying to grow the game, or the NRL's trying to grow the game. Well, let's give back to the bush. Let's give back to the grassroots rugby league, and let them play the game, and let it be cost effective, and let it be competitive with other sports.
You mentioned the NRL. Peter V'landys comes to mind. He continues to talk about the health of the game in terms of its financial power and prowess and the expansion. So much talk about that. Do you think he is very detached, unaware of what's going on in the bush? Is that being a bit harsh, or is that fair comment?
I think he'd have to know, or certainly people underneath Mr. V'landys would have to know, because I know I've spoken to a number of people in rural areas, and they've all got the same disappointment, I suppose, for want of a better term, in having to pay that money. And it's, if you break it down to $2,200 between 40 players, it's a lot easier to swallow than $150 each per player. So, where's the fat out of that lamb going? And it's not going to the rugby league.
For our international audience, I'd like you to shine a light on some of the trials and tribulations in another regard here in Mount Isa and in northwest Queensland, and that is the whole concept of tyranny of distance. Can you explain to our audience, far and wide, some of the big distances involved in getting to footy, particularly when you had clubs like the Normanton Stingers and Cloncurry playing in the Mount Isa Rugby League?
Yeah, well, Mount Isa's about 1,900 kilometres northwest of Brisbane. At the top of the state, we're closer to Dale than what we are Brisbane. We're 200 kilometres from the Northern Territory border. And when I first came to Mount Isa, we had Normanton and Cloncurry in our competition, along with 4 local teams. It was basically 530 kilometres one way to play football at Normanton. And that was a big tax on both Normanton coming to Mount Isa, and certainly the clubs to go up to Normanton.
530 clicks one way.
One way, that's right.
And who pays for that in terms of getting players there? That not everyone's got a car, and everyone's circumstances, they're not the same, is it?
No, that's right. And I mean, rugby league's a blue-collar sport. It's not many rugby league players have had a silver spoon in their mouth, and they're not flush with money. And, it's a tough effort by individuals and clubs to get teams to travel that far for a game of football and risk their livelihood. Some of the guys earn pretty good money in the mines, and they're risking getting hurt and going back to earning, $300 or $400 a week on insurance if they get hurt to that degree, So it's a big ask of individuals to be part of rugby league in the bush. And, sometimes the tyranny of distance is pretty good as far as bonding goes, but, it's a big ask. I remember we went up there, play a grand final, and I think by the time I left home in the morning and got home the next morning, I'd been 20 hours either driving buses, coaching the team, and strapping boys up and driving buses back to Mount Isa.
Amazing stuff. Sean Wade, thanks for joining us on Bushbeat.
Yeah, thanks, Costo. And it was a great weekend last weekend, and thanks for coming up. And hopefully it shed a better light on Mount Isa in the northwest. And we got plenty to offer up here. It's not just rugby league, it's a great community.
Certainly, I could echo those sentiments. Great to be back in Mount Isa. Sean Wade, thanks for joining us. There he is. He joined us in co-commentary last Sunday for the grand final. Sean Wade, the former premiership winning coach with Townies. We just heard him then on rugbyleague.com's Bushbeat program. Stay with us. We'll have more to come right after this. Welcome back to Bushbeat here on rugbyleague.com, and time now for our look at Queensland from Currumbin through to Cairns. And firstly, Mount Isa. And as you heard earlier, Wanderers lifting the trophy last weekend with a 32-22 victory in the grand final over Townies at Alec Inch Oval. And I reckon Alan Bailey, Baby and co are still celebrating as we speak, and good on them. Back on the coast, some sad news in far north Queensland with the passing of the legendary John Moore, as reported in our news on rugbyleague.com. I first came across John Moore many moons ago, an iconic figure in Cairns and especially rugby league, of course. He leaves a lasting legacy, there's no doubt about that, and our deepest condolences to his family and friends. On the field last weekend in Far North Queensland Rugby League, just 2 points the difference in 3 of the 4 matches. Mossman 24, Innisfail 22, Ivanhoe's 26, Suburbs 24, Mareeba 30, Tully 32, and Edmonton 10, Cairns Brothers 76. And by the way, I did give the Storm 80-point start in that game, They finished up losing by just 66. To the ladder, Cairns Brothers and Atherton on 20 points, Suburbs 18, Mossman, Port Douglas Sharks 13, Ivanhoe's 12, Mareeba 11, Tully, Roos and Innisfail all on 10 points, Yarrabah 8, Edmonton on 0. This Saturday, it's the Battle of the Cassowary Coast, with Innisfail Leprechauns up against Tully Tigers at Callender Park, as Mareeba host old rivals Atherton. Those games starting at 6 o'clock. Rivalry round continues on Sunday, with Mossman making the trip to Yarrabah, Edmonton hosting Roos, and a real grudge match between Cairns Brothers and Ivanhoe's at Stan Williams Park, where that multi-million-dollar upgrade to the ground looks very impressive indeed. In the Townsville competition, last weekend, Brothers 44, Norths 18, Western Lions 22, Centrals 18, South 16, Charters Towers 10. To the ladder, Souths on top on 18, Brothers second on 14, followed by Herbert River, Charters Towers and Burdekin, all those teams on 10 points, then Centrals, Norths and Western Lions on 6. This Saturday, 2 out-of-town matches starting at 4:30pm. In the Towers, we've got Miners v Brothers, and at Ingham, in the Battle of the Sugar Milling Districts, it's Herbert River versus Burdekin. In the old days, that would be Foley Shield, but now it's just a club game, albeit a big one, when those two get together. And on Sunday, in outer suburban Kerwin, it's Western Lions v Norths at 3:30, and from 4 o'clock at the Sports Reserve, where I used to cover the local footy for the Townsville Bulletin, and walking distance to my old pad near the Strand, it's Centrals v Souths. In the Mackay competition last weekend at the Junior League grounds, Serena 24, Brothers 32, Moranbah 38, Western Suburbs no score, Magpies 8, Souths 44. To the ladder, Moranbah leading the way on 18 points, Souths 16, Brothers 14, Magpies and Wests on 8, Serena and Whitsunday on 4. And for this weekend on Saturday, Souths play the Brahmins at Shark Park from 3 o'clock. And then at 6:30 at the southern end of Milton Street, we've got Brothers v Moranbah in what is the match of the round. And on Sunday from 3 o'clock, it's Western Suburbs hosting their country cousins, the Serena Crocodiles. In the Central Highlands last weekend, the Tigers beat Claremont because the Bears failed to turn up. Poor form, Claremont, very poor form. And the same with Blackwater defeating the Peak Downs Pirates because the Pirates also forfeited their game. So yes, poor form, Pirates, very poor form. And very embarrassing for the Central Highlands Rugby League, not just those clubs involved, and goodness knows where this is all going. In the only game that was played last weekend, at Springshaw, Brothers prevailed 38 points to 14. To the table, Middle Mountain Brothers on top on 18, Bluff 16, Tigers 15, Blackwater 11, Springshaw 10, Claremont 8, Peak Down 6. The competition is now on pause in the Central Highlands. Fixtures resume tomorrow week, that is the 4th of July. In the Central West, it's grand final week. How exciting. Bark Halden and Longreach Ilfracombe supporters getting right behind their respective teams, local schools, shops, even the local police showing their colours. Good on them, I say. Last weekend in the preliminary final, the Tigers upset the Magpies at Blackall. 26-22 the final score, which lifted the Tigers into the season finale against the Sandgoannas. And consequently, last year's defending premiers Blackall, the Magpies, are gone. And speaking of which, the grand final, we are broadcasting it, of course, this coming Saturday, live and free from the Barkey Showground from 6:30pm. It's a 6:30 kickoff local time, but we'll be on air a couple of hours beforehand with our pre-game show before we take some NRL action via the continuous call team and then come back to Barkey just before kick-off in the Central West Rugby League Grand Final. We certainly hope you can join us. It'll be fun. In Rockhampton last weekend, Brothers overcame Norths 34-20. Tannum Sands crushed Fitzroy's 58-12. Yeppoon had Gladstone Brothers stitched up. It was a 58-10 shellacking, and Emu Park defeated Valleys 32 points to 28. To the ladder, Rocky Brothers on top on 17, Emu Park 14, Yeppoon 12, Norths 11, Gladstone Brothers 6, Valleys 5, Tannum 4, and Fitzroy's on 1. This Saturday, 4 matches to start at 6:30pm in the Harbour City at Marley Brown. Valleys play Norths. At Emu Park, it's the Emus versus Gladstone Brothers. Back in Rocky at Vicky Park, it's Rocky Brothers at home to Southside rivals Fitzroy's. And at Yeppoon, it's the Battle of the Gulls, the Yeppoon Seagulls versus the Tannum Sands Seagulls. In Bundaberg, last weekend, Waves 40, Wallaroos 22, West 10, Brothers 44 and Harvey Bay 24, East 22. The ladder, Waves on top on 17, Brothers 13, Harvey Bay 9, Roos 7, East 6, West 2. This Saturday in the Rum capital, Brothers have a home game against East from 2 o'clock. And at Salter Oval, at headquarters, West v Roos, followed by Waves v Harvey Bay at 3:45 and 5:30 respectively. In the Northern Districts, after all that drama at Gin Gin last weekend at Childers, South Callan Sharks 30, Gin Gin Hawks 12, Marlins 4, Miriam Vale Magpies 40, and the Isis Devils 34, Calliope Roosters 14. To the ladder, Isis Devils on 18, South Callan 14, Avondale 10, Gin Gin, Miriam Vale and Calliope on 8, Marlins on 2. The league is now on pause until July the 6th, that's Sunday week. In the Central Burnett last weekend, Gayndah had a big win over the Monto Roos, 72 points to nil, Mundubra 12, Biggendon 18, Gayndah on top on 16, Biggendon 15, Mundubra 11, Monto 8, Eidsvoll 4. This Saturday, Gayndah is the venue for the doubleheader, Monto v Mundubra from 3 o'clock, and then from 5 p.m. it's Gayndah versus Eidsvoll. In the neighbouring South Burnett, Cherbourg was the venue last Saturday. Mergen sadly forfeited yet again, this time to Cherbourg. So just the one match played, Kingaroy 32, Wondai 22. The ladder has undefeated Cherbourg on top on 15, Kingaroy on 8, Wondai 6, Mergen on 3. This Saturday, last time we checked, 2 games on the program at Mergen, where Kingaroy are listed as the home team against the Mustangs, which looks pretty strange, I've got to say, but that's what it does say. And Cherbourg play Wondai, so that's a 1:30 p.m. and a 3 p.m. kickoff respectively. On the Sunshine Coast, last weekend, Caboolture 18, Nambour 24, Coolum 12, Stanley River 14, Caloundra 14, Noosa 14, Beerwah 12, Kawana 24. And the table, Stanley River 40, Coolum 32, Maroochydore 28, Kawana 24, Noosa 22, Beerwah 20, Caloundra 18, Nambour 12, Caboolture 4. This Saturday at 5:30, we've got Noosa at Kawana, Caboolture at Coolum, and Maroochydore at Caloundra. And on Sunday at Woodford, the table-topping Wolves clash with the Bulldogs from 3 o'clock. In Ipswich, no footy last weekend. Recapping the table, Redbank Plains and Brothers on 9, Jets and Bombers on 8, North 6, West End 2. This Saturday, the Fassifern Bombers are at Redbank Plains from 6 o'clock. And on Sunday at the North Ipswich Reserve, the Jets played Norths from midday, and at 3 p.m, Brothers hosting West End. In Toowoomba last weekend, Pittsworth 6, Gatton 28, Wattles 42, Valleys 10, Dolby 56, Souths 8, Gundawindi 26, Brothers 24, and Highfields 24, Warwick 34. To the ladder, Gatton still the team to beat. They're on 18 points. Wattles 14, Brothers 12, Gundawindi 11, Warwick and Valleys 10, Dolby 9, Pittsworth 6, Oakey 4, Highfields and Souths on 3. And for this Saturday, we've got Highfields at home to Dolby at 6 o'clock, and from 6:30, Gatton hosting Gundawindi as Pittsworth plays Souths, and on Sunday, Wattles off to Warwick as Oakey, coming off the bye, host Brothers. Those games starting at 2:30. In the Roma and District Rugby League, our thoughts and prayers are with the Wallumbilla Surat Red Bulls. The Red Bulls back on the field last Sunday after the tragic passing of 23-year-old Kobe Fechner, who was laid to rest only yesterday. And our heartfelt condolences to family and friends. In the latest round, in Roma, Cities beat the Red Bulls 16 points to 10. Chinchilla 38-10 victors against Miles. Mitchell won 42-24 up at Taroom, and a 12-all draw between Jandowae and St George. To the ladder, Cities on top on 28, Jandowae 18, Chinchilla and the Battlers on 16, St George, the Red Bulls, or rather St George 14, the Red Bulls, Mitchell and Miles on 12. And looking ahead this Sunday, Mitchell in Roma to play Cities, Chinchilla hosting the Battlers, St George at Miles, and at Wallumbilla, the Red Bulls play the Fishhooks, all games starting at 3 o'clock. In the Border Rugby League last weekend, Tenterfield won 36-14 at Inglewood, and this Saturday they're back at the Chook Pen where Inglewood welcomes Stanthorpe. Kickoff is 2 p.m. And as for the ladder, the undefeated Gremlins on 8 points, Tigers and Roosters on 2. Finally to the Gold Coast last weekend, 3 lopsided matches with all the visiting teams winning. The Burleigh Bears thrashed Runaway Bay 40 points to 0, Helensvale 46-14 over Currumbin, and Costigan smashed Southport 62-zip. Burleigh Bears remain undefeated on 18 points, Costigan and Currumbin on 12, Helensvale and Runaway Bay on 8 points, and poor old Southport on 0. And this Sunday on the Goldie, from 2 o'clock at Betty Diamond, Costigan v Runaway Bay, and at 3 p.m, Currumbin hosts Southport as Burleigh welcome Helensvale. That's the Sunshine State done and dusted. You're listening to Bushbeat here on rugbyleague.com. Welcome back to Bushbeat and our final segment this week, where we crisscross the continent. Firstly, south of the Murray, where NRL Victoria has had the PR machine working overtime, and rightly so. That's because they've recorded now more than 6,000 player registrations for this season. It's a big deal. That's the highest number, in fact, in the history of rugby league in Victoria. So well done to all concerned. Last weekend in the Melbourne Storm Premiership, the Rabbitohs beat the Tigers 24-16. The Thunderbolts 42-22 winners over Northern Thunder. And the Warriors 52-10 victors against the Cowboys. The Thunder on top on 16 points. Next, the Thunderbolts on 14, the Bunnies 12, Casey Warriors 10, Altona Roosters 8, Sunbury Tigers 6, Sunshine Cowboys 2. For this Saturday, just the 2 fixtures on the card. From 4:10 p.m, the Thunderbolts play the Cowboys at Seabrook Reserve, and then at 4:55 at Bruce Combin Reserve, it's the Roosters and the Rabbitohs. In regional Victoria, last weekend at the doubleheader at Corowa, just across the border, Wangaratta Knights 70-0 winners against the Wodonga Wombats, and the Cougars too good for the Wolfpack 40 points to 26. And further upstream at North Albury, Shepparton beat Border Bears 46-6. To the ladder, the undefeated Tumbarumba on 12 points, followed by Shepparton and Corowa on 10. Next is Wangaratta on 8, Border Bears 6, Wodonga Wombats 4, and the Wolfpack yet to get off the mark, and what's been a pretty difficult season for those boys. This coming Saturday in round 8, the Goulburn Valley takes centre stage with a double-header at what they call Pee-wee Oval at Mooroopna. From 1:30, we've got the Wolfpack playing Wangaratta, and at 3:15, the main event, Shepparton versus Corowa. And then on Sunday, north of the border at Tumbarumba, from 1:30, it's the Galloping Greens versus the Border Bears. In South Australia, just the 2 games played last weekend. The Warriors walloped Souths 50 points to 10 before the Black Swans beat the Eels 42 points to 30. The second game at Murray Bridge did not happen. That's because Adelaide Plains were a no-show against the Roosters. To the ladder in SA, the undefeated Black Swans on 8, the Eels 6, Roosters 4, Warriors and Souths 2, Adelaide Plains on 0. Tomorrow night, that's Friday night of course, from 8 o'clock we have the Roosters v Souths at Eyre Park, and then on Sunday from 2:30 in the Barossa, assuming they've got the numbers, Adelaide Plains v the Eels, and then from 4 o'clock at Gleneagles Reserve, it's Warriors versus Black Swans. Across the Nullarbor and in the West, no club games last weekend, with the Dolphins v Newcastle NRL game taking centre stage after Origin 2 in Perth. But it's back on this weekend in the field to go and play Premiership. On Saturday at 5:30, Giants host the Sharks as the front-running Lions welcome the Roosters. And then from 6:30, 2-time defending champions North Beach are at home to Willagee Bears. The Eagles second on for and against, and looking to keep the pressure on South Perth. And finally to the top end and the Northern Territory's Dabsco Premiership. Last weekend, Palmerston beat Nightcliff 28-16. Litchfield buried Northern Sharks 78-0. And Brothers wiped out South Darwin 80 points to 6. After 9 rounds, Litchfield on top on 16 points. Brothers and Palmerston on 14. Nightcliff 8, Northern Sharks 2, and Souths on 0. Tomorrow night, that's Friday night of course, Brothers v Nightcliff from 8:20 at TRL headquarters. Then on Saturday at the same venue, we've got the Sharkies and Souths and the Raiders versus the Bears. Those games starting at 6 o'clock and 7:40 p.m. respectively. That's our show for another week. Again, sincere thanks to Bob Jakeman and Sean Wade for joining me for this episode of Bushbeat. Also thanks to Sean again for being alongside myself in the commentary box last Sunday to call the grand final in Mount Isa. And thanks also to Bob and the MIRL, that's the Mount Isa Rugby League team, for making it happen. Virginia, Tammy, Mel and the crew, thanks very much for your hospitality and making it happen. And of course, our special guest before kickoff, local legends Mel Brosnan and Billy Bowden, and the coaches Tim O'Sullivan and Johnny Doyle from Wanderers and Townies respectively, and also to Bernard and the team at the Irish Club for their continued support of Mount Isa Rugby League. As always, thanks to Steve Mascord in London for pulling this together. And don't forget, I'll be at Bar Calden in central Western Queensland on Saturday night to call the Central West Grand Final, the Sandgoannas versus the Longreach Ilfracombe Tigers. It should be a ripper. For now, this is Costo signing off. Stick around. The news is next on rugbyleague.com.